All right, excellent. So class, this is a picture of one of the fish that we'll be going over today. Does anyone know what this is? It's kind of a rhetorical question. You know, these guys come up with these names. The slippery D. This is also one of the reasons why Helicaries bavitatus is one of those reasons why the Latin name is oftentimes better than the common name, because sometimes people give things ridiculous names like this. But we'll talk about these today. So lecture 12, this is the second to last lecture on taxonomy. We'll be talking about the most advanced fishes next Tuesday. So the first family we have here, again, this is just, again, there's lots of perciforms, so we're in the same order. This is family Labridae, the wrasses, Labridae. This is one of the easier families for me to remember. These things are quite characteristic. They have protractile oral jaws, and then sometimes protruding tusk-like teeth. They have very good dentition here on their oral jaws. Some cases, their lips are quite fleshy, like this one here. And the mouth is terminal, very usually kind of prominent. Even on small wrasses, you've got a pretty prominent mouth. Very well-developed and diversified pharyngeal teeth. So this second pharyngeal jaw inside of the head is very well-developed. Again, generally speaking, a very strong characteristic of order Perciformes. Very highly diversified in family Labridae. Lots of different body shapes, sizes, colors, you know, brilliant blues to yellows and greens to some kind of drab, dark colors. So lots of variation there. Very large family. Labridae is over 500 species. It's really the second largest family of marine fishes. Reproduction is variable. Oftentimes even within the same species. So different populations of the same species can have slightly different reproductive strategies. Sometimes they're broadcast spawners where they pair mate, so single female with a single male. Other times it's harems, where it's one male and several females. And in some cases, it's outright what we call group spawning, where it's many males and many females together release their gametes simultaneously, and it's sort of just like a whole lot of mixing that goes on, external fertilization. A lot of fishes in family Labridae are what we call serial hermaphrodites. So again, like we talked about last time, protogynous, meaning proto first, gene females, or protandrous, proto first, andro male. So sometimes they start off as one gender, and as they get bigger or older, they'll switch. Max length is 7.5 feet. You know, a lot of these wrasses are pretty small, but some of them are pretty big. The Napoleon fish or the Maori wrasse of the Indo-Pacific can get to be 7.5 feet long, so they can be pretty big. Family, worldwide tropical. These are warm water fish, marine, and sometimes you'll find them in temperate waters, but a lot of times they're associated with coral reefs. So family Labridae, here are some examples. Oh, here this guy is right here. Body shapes vary from cigar-like to highly compressed or deep-bodied. So sometimes they're kind of thin, highly compressed, kind of like a pancake, but very deep-bodied, very wide or deep-bodied. Sometimes they're highly compressed, like the slippery Ds, or the blue-headed wrasse is probably the most famous there. This is a very popular aquarium fish, the blue-headed wrasse, Thalassoma bifasciatum. The Scott's fairy wrasse, again, a lot of times very brilliant color patterns among the wrasses of family Labridae. Now, they swim by flapping these pectoral fins. And sometimes the swimming is described as jerky. I almost would call it erratic. And they sort of flap their fins or they row their fins. And so most of their swimming momentum is actually generated by the pectoral fins. And when we talk about fish locomotion later, this is a very characteristic feature of family Labridae. They actually call this labriform swimming based on the name of this family. And so here's a video of this swimming pattern. So just pay attention to the pectoral fins and also notice how jerky the swimming is of the fish. Right there. Sort of up and down. Just one of the rats there. They're primarily using their pectoral fins for locomotion. That is labriform swimming. So very characteristic in this family, labriform swimming. Here we go again with the slippery D. These fish here, also family Labridae, they're brightly colored terminal phase in males. And again, a lot of times when you're looking at fishes or species within family Labridae, when you have serial hermaphroditism, when they change gender, a lot of times they'll change their body coloration to reflect that change in gender. So they have what we call terminal phase in males. The coloration changes ontogenetically. So juveniles and females are a plainer color, and then the terminal males then have this more brilliant kind of pink or greenish color to them. So they're very pretty. Very pretty. Hogfish are another example here, Labridae. Again, specialization here of the jaw, these elongated snouts. They're named hogfish because they've got like a pig-like snout, I guess. The hogfish then search in the substrate here for buried crustaceans that they eat, and that's what they sort of use this head design to do. And so a little bit of an adaptation on the jaws to help them then forage in the benthos for crustaceans that are buried. Again, most fishes in family Labridae are protogynous hermaphrodites. So protogynous is the female first, and then they switch to males. There's very complicated reproductive strategies in here, and so I'm going to show a video now of the blue-headed wrasse discussing some of this. So here is a blue-headed wrasse, or actually these are just blue-headed wrasse, I think, swimming in the aquarium. Here we go. Again, note that labriform swimming, the kind of erratic, primarily pectoral fin swimming. They almost really use their caudal fin and tail mostly to steer, whereas lots of other fish actually will generate thrust with the caudal fin. Some other tropical wrasses are cleaner fish. They remove ectoparasites and necrotic tissues of other fishes. And so I'll show a video here of cleaner wrasses. It's kind of a unique ecosystem niche that they have. And so here are some cleaner wrasses. You can see the cleaner wrasses just go right in there, and they'll clean parasites out of larger fish. So for instance, the mouth. And so those are the cleaner wrasses. So lots of variation there again in form and also function in biology. So very, very complicated, diverse family Labridae. So here's the next group of fishes here, family Scaridae, the parrot fishes. Now, one of the primary features here, Scaridae is relatively easy for me to remember how to spell it. They have non-protractile jaws that are fused into a beak. Look at this powerful beak. These jaws literally are, I mean, they call them parrotfish. They've got a beak like a parrot. And they have massive pharyngeal mills inside of their head. So their pharyngeal jaw is extraordinarily powerful. These things literally eat coral. They eat rock. So their teeth are designed, this beak is designed to bite through coral, and the pharyngeal jaw is designed to pulverize that coral. So they literally eat rock. Large cycloid scales on the side. So these are kind of a throwback. You know, mostly in order perciformes, we're talking about ctenoid scales. Here, cycloid scales is kind of a throwback. We haven't seen this in a while. So every now and then there's a throwback. But the primary characteristics here are the beak and the very heavy pharyngeal jaw. Bright colors in terminal phase males. And so again, they're sort of serial hermaphrodites. 83 species. They broadcast spawn in pairs. Again, one male, one female. Harems, again, one male with several females, or oftentimes, in some cases, groups. Multiple males and females will all release their gametes. External fertilization, no parental care. Max length, 6 feet, but the smallest is only 5 inches. So a lot of variation there in body size. Families, worldwide tropical, ocean, marine distribution, subtropical, oftentimes bicoral reefs. And again, these things actually eat coral. In some cases, they lead to coral erosion. So very characteristic, often also brightly colored, these blues and purples, greens and reds, very vibrant colors here, but this beak is a characteristic. So parrotfish feed by scraping algae off of dead coral surfaces with this beak. In some species, they just outright consume live coral. They just literally just bite chunks of the coral reef off and chew it up and then pulverize it into essentially sand. They grind it into sand in their pharyngeal jaw. And they're oftentimes responsible for bioerosion of coral reefs along with sea urchins, so that they have been known to be contributing to this. They can create large amounts of sediment. And so recall this, next time you're on the beach, you know, laying on the beach in the sand, getting the sun, hearing the waves, think about how many grains of sand that you're laying on came out of the anus of a parrotfish. Because they do basically process the coral into sand and then release it. And then it washes up on the beach. So just think about that next time you're sunning yourself on the beach. So here's a video looking at parrotfish feeding. And note that beak right there.
Hump-head parrotfish, nearly 1.5 meters in length. Their jaws are so powerful they can bite through rock. When they descend to feed, the reef itself is under threat. They are indiscriminate feeders, taking both rock and coral alike in their quest for algae. These fish play a large part in the erosion of the reef. The rock and coral they swallow emerges later as a fine sand. On a single reef, they can produce tons of it every year. This soft sand forms the tropical beaches that we find so alluring. Over time, the sand builds up to form an island, which is then colonized by animals and plants. Trees take root. Birds arrive. The guano from thousands of terns which have chosen to nest here enriches the sandy soil, which then can support more plants.
So that is parrotfish feeding. And you can see them releasing that sand after they processed it. Again, very powerful pharyngeal jaws. Parrotfish also have this labriform swimming style. So just like family Labridae, they have this swimming primarily using the pectoral fin, and I'll show a video of that. And they are protogynous hermaphrodites. Again, females first switching to males, also with very complicated reproductive strategies and also with this sex change, the gender change. So I'm going to show a video of the labriform swimming of the parrotfish, followed then by a group spawning of the parrotfish. So note the pectoral fins. And so that is the labriform swimming, and here then is the bumphead parrotfish spawning. So that is group spawning there of the parrotfish. Another interesting thing that parrotfish do. You know, we talk about fish. Most fish don't really sleep like we know it, like you and I experience sleep. They might go into a period of suspended animation, but parrotfish actually kind of sleep. And during this time, they are motionless at night, and they actually build a mucus cocoon that surrounds them. And then this mucus cocoon presumably protects them while they're non-moving while in this sleep-like state. Protects them against, for instance, the nocturnal scent predators such as moray eels, and also it protects them from being colonized by parasites, for instance, when they're immobile. And so here's a video of that mucus cocoon that they produce. It's a very interesting kind of thing. I don't know many other fishes that do this, but here's a mucus cocoon. So interesting. That's the mucus cocoon of the parrotfish. So interesting little strategy there. Now we're going to move into suborder Trachonoidea. 13 families, about 212 species. We're only going to talk about one here. We're going to talk about, look at this crazy thing right here. We are going to talk about this. This is Uranoscopidae, the stargazers. Look at this, kind of creepy looking. These things are lurking predators. They sort of burrow in the sand like this. These are its eyes. And then this is its mouth. And then they wait for fish to swim by, and then they eat them. They jump up out of, they swim up out of the sand really quickly and eat them. So Uranoscopidae, the stargazers. And so here we are, family Uranoscopidae. Again, these are the eyes here, and then this is the mouth. And this fish is buried in the substrate, the sand. Here is a stargazer out above the sand. They sort of got like this large, they look kind of like a goosefish, to be honest. Large cuboid head with a vertical mouth. And they actually have this, look at this. They have this worm-like lure on the floor of their mouth that they can extend out. And this is sort of like very similar to the Elysium and the Esca of the anglerfish, where they use this to attract fish to swim by to check that out, and then they eat them. So it's sort of to attract prey items. The lips are fringed, so they're kind of got good three-dimensional kind of camouflage here. That fringed effect on the lips helps to sort of mimic that, hide them in the sand. They have large venomous spines in the clithrum. The clithrum is a bone down here on the side of the head. And so they do have a venomous spine there in some of the species for protection. And again, they partially bury into the substrate, mostly the sand, and then they lie in wait for prey, small fish and crustaceans to swim by. And then they sort of surprise and eat them. The southern stargazer and members of this genus, Uranoscopidae, of this genus, Astroscopus in family Uranoscopidae, they have electric organs located in pockets around the eyes that are myogenic. Again, we see the myogenic, like family Torpinidae with the electric ray, these muscle producing electric organs. They can produce small amounts of electricity. These things cannot shock anything or stun it. Really, the idea here is that they use the electric organs to sense electrical currents generated by prey items, and so it's more of a sense of detection. So they can feel, for instance, the muscles of prey fish and then know that there's something nearby that they can potentially eat. About 50 species. You know, we consider these things broadcast spawners with external fertilization because that's what most fish do. But we don't really know all that much about the reproduction of fishes in family Uranoscopidae, so it's sort of our best guess. Max length is about 2.5 feet. Family is worldwide marine and estuarine distribution, usually in tropical and temperate seas. So here's a video showing stargazer speeding, and you can sort of see them burying themselves and then how they strike their prey. And this is what we call lurking or lie-in-wait predators here, lie-in-wait or lurking predators. So here is the stargazer. And you can sort of see, here's the mouth of that stargazer, and it's sort of eating something here. So that stargazer is releasing the scales. The fish that just ate was getting pulverized by that inner pharyngeal jaw. Now I'm going to pause this here. This is a triggerfish. Now note this this dorsal hard spine here, and we talk about how dorsal spines are armor, and they allow for protection of a fish from being eaten. Watch what happens here. So the stargazer was unable to eat that triggerfish because it extended that spine, and then it wouldn't fit then into the mouth of the stargazer. Notice that skate, you can tell something is underneath the sand there. The skate can understand something's underneath the sand there because remember, it has the ampullae of Lorenzini, and so it can detect that. We got chat. I love it. I love it. So the ampullae of Lorenzini allowed the skate to be able to identify there's probably something buried in the sand I don't want to swim over. that was the stargazer. Saw that there also. Could notice the stargazer there. So, Uranoscopidae. I always like this family. It's a pretty interesting one. I like family Uranoscopidae, the stargazers. Very cool family. Next, suborder Blenioidea, the blennies. So this group has some skeletal features here around the gills. They're kind of a unique opercular structure we'll talk about. They're kind of restricted, small opercular exits. Anal fin always has fewer than 3 hard spines in it. And then these things are called cirri. Now, cirri are these kind of like feather-like extensions, often associated with the eyes. So ocular, nape, sometimes here on the neck, or nasal, sometimes here right off the nose. And so they have these cirri on the head. It's really, I'm going to say, one of the most characteristic features here. 6 families, 732 species. Really, we're going to be looking at family, and again, suborder Blenioidea. Well, here we'll be talking about family Bleniidae, the blennies. Now, these are generally, I like to call these things happy fish. Look at these things. They look like they're smiling, they're having a good time. And then they got these really kind of cute cirri on their heads. So very characteristic of this family, Bleniidae. They're naked. They have no scales on their body, so they've just got skin. Blunt head, again, usually kind of a blunt head here. And again, ocular or nasal cirri. So again, these cirri, they either come off the nose and or up off the eyes. Very common. Long continuous dorsal fin here. And there are always more soft rays than there are hard spines. So these things don't have a whole lot of hard spines, mostly soft rays. There are fleshy pads on those 2 of the anal spines that are present in males, which are breeding. The pelvic fins are jugular. They're located right here on the throat. Also, you can sort of see right here the jugular pelvic fins. So in some cases, anterior to the pectoral fins. Gill exits are restricted, so they have this very relatively small operculum. In some cases, it's just a little excurrent siphon. And that's one of the key features there. Teeth are close set, movable, and they're almost kind of like combs. The teeth in the mouth are like a comb, and they use this for scraping coral reef surfaces for algae then and small animals that live on the corals. So they sort of graze on coral. 345 species, substrate spawners. So they lay eggs in the sand or gravel. And then the males will then guard the eggs in those nests. Max length, 22 inches, so less than 2 feet, but most are 6 inches or less. So they're a small kind of fish. Family, worldwide tropic distribution and also temperate, mainly in marine coral reefs. Occasionally, you'll find them in freshwater or brackish water, but mostly marine, oftentimes tropical, and really they're associated with coral reefs. And so those are the blennies. Here are some other pictures of blennies. These ocular cirri, again, ocular meaning they're associated with the eyes. They are a chemosensory apparatus. So they can taste with these or smell, if you will. They can detect chemicals in the water. And again, when we talk about sensory biology of fishes, you know, the sense of smell and taste are sort of like, it really sort of depends on what area of the brain it's processing. Is the only real difference between those two senses when you're in the water compared to us being on the air. So it's a sensory apparatus. Sometimes also it allows them to some kind of camouflage. So some of the gobies or the blennies are very nicely camouflaged, and so it sort of helps them camouflage. And also in some cases they're gender specific, or they're involved in species recognition for breeding purposes. So those are some of the ideas about what these cirri are used for. Here is a seaweed blenny guarding eggs. And then again, note like this small operculum here, and again, these cirri. Here is a male striped blenny. In some cases, they do not have cirri, like in this example, but that's usually relatively rare. Most of the time, they have these cirri. So I would go ahead and call that a diagnostic feature for the family, these cirri. So here's a video of blennies. And you can sort of see, like I said, they're happy fish. Family Bleniidae. Those are the blennies. And then here's sort of a website here, Chesapeake Bay program. Again, Bleniidae is the family, and so there's some information here, additional information about blennies. I think there's a video here. I don't know the quality of this. It's just a blenny. Again, note these cirri. I'd say is the key diagnostic feature here. Family Bleniidae with cirri on the head. Happy fish. All right, so my pointer, family Bleniidae. So now we'll talk about suborder Gobioidea, the gobies. And again, a lot of times these common names, gobies, here we are, we're talking about them. And actually, we're going to be talking about family Gobiidae, the gobies. So these are somewhat easy to remember because of that. The group is united by the absence of parietal bones. Now, really, all you have to know here is that those are just some bones in the skull. The lateral line really is an important characteristic here. The lateral line is reduced only to the head. So they only have a lateral line in the head, and they do not have a lateral line going down the side of their body. Is one of the main features. Also, the swim bladder is usually absent. So they do not have a swim bladder or a gas bladder inside of their body for buoyancy. What that indicates, again, if you know about the form and function of fishes, you can sort of figure out a little bit about their life history. If they don't have a swim bladder, they probably don't need to have buoyancy because maybe they're benthic. They live on the bottom, and so they don't need to have buoyancy. In this case, the gobies oftentimes live on the bottom. They're benthic. So they don't have a swim bladder because they don't need to float. They sit on the bottom. Also, their pelvic fins are thoracic, and they are modified into a sucking disc. So when we talked about the remoras, they had a sucking disc that was on the head as a modified dorsal fin. The gobies actually have a modified sucking disc here on the ventral aspect, which is a modified pelvic fin, right? Again, they're benthic, and they can sort of attach to the substrate using this suctorial disc. 8 families, really a lot of diversity here, 2,000 species. So there's a lot of diversity there. So 8 families. We're going to talk here about family Gobiidae. And so the gobies. Pelvic fins, again, are united into this thoracic or pelvic suctorial disc. They sort of sit on the bottom. You can see a lot of these pictures here. They're sort of hanging out on the bottom. Sometimes they'll use that disc to attach to rocks, for instance. Mouth is usually inferior. Again, another characteristic of something that lives on the benthos. It's eating off the bottom. Gobies oftentimes have an inferior mouth. And again, we talked earlier on about fish evolution, and we said that oftentimes less derived fishes have an inferior mouth and more derived fishes have that like underslung jaw, but that's not always the case. Well, this is one of those cases. It's an advanced feature. These are not less derived at all. These are actually very well derived. The jaws are just modified for benthic lifestyle, so feeding off the bottom. Gobies are predominantly cryptic reef fishes, and along with blennies, family Bleniidae, Gobiidae makes up most of the species on a coral reef. Many species occupy sand or mud burrows, and so we're going to talk here, we're going to show a video about the symbiotic behavior between gobies and shrimp, for instance. They sort of live together in the same communal burrow. So a lot of times these things, that's part of the reason why they've only got a lateral line around their head and not down the side of their body, because oftentimes they're hiding in these burrows, and so there's no need to have a lateral line there. Very similar to moray eels, for instance, who live in the crevices of coral reefs and only stick their heads out. They've only got lateral line on their head. And they, again, some gobies associate them with invertebrates, for instance, shrimp, but also sea urchins and sponges. So it's kind of they hang out with other organisms for protection. Many recently studied gobies are protogynous, again, meaning they're initially females and then transition into males. So serial hermaphroditism. 2,000 species, largest family of marine fishes, actually. Again, a lot of diversity here. The largest family are the gobies. Substrate spawners, they have these kind of like weird shaped eggs that are sort of like long shaped eggs that they sort of lay in a nest, and the male or the female may guard this nest. It's sort of is species specific. So one or the other might guard the nest, but there is parental care there. External fertilization with parental care. Max length 20 inches, but really the smallest species is only 3/8 of an inch long. Another fact here is that, in fact, the world's smallest vertebrate is a goby. So family Gobiidae, world's smallest vertebrate, also the largest family of marine fishes. Families worldwide, tropical, temperate, marine, estuaries, and freshwaters. You know, there are gobies that are exotic species in the Great Lakes, for instance. So there are freshwater gobies, but very large, diverse family, lots of different strategies. So here's a video of goby and cleaner shrimp and their symbiotic relationship in mud burrows as a video.
Another goby and another strategy. A shrimp dug his burrow and still lives here, cleaning out the sand. The shrimp has poor eyesight and relies on the goby as a guard. There's a tenderness between this odd couple. The shrimp always has a tentacle touching the goby, and the goby warns the shrimp with flicks of his fins. So Harl surgeonfish passes. The goby pushes the shrimp down the burrow. The hard-working housekeeper rarely goes out. Instead, it removes dirt and small visitors and parasites by eating them. The Gulf's characters may be less colourful than the Red Sea's, but are no less wonderful.
So symbiotic relationships there with the gobies and the shrimp. So let me put my pointer back on. There we go. So the brightly colored reef goby species, Gobiosoma, are cleaners of other fishes, similar to cleaner wrasses. You know, we saw the wrasses of Labraday cleaning the mouths of some fishes. There are cleaner gobies as well, and so you can sort of see these cleaner gobies on this moray eel, cleaning parasites off the head and sometimes inside the mouth as well. And again, here's an example then of those cleaner wrasses that clean, for instance, the mouth of some fishes. And here's a cleaner goby up close. One of the main characteristics, sometimes people think these look a lot like the blennies, family Bleniidae, but these things never have these cirri on the head. So that's the main characteristic there between Gobiidae and Bleniidae. And also, they've got this cephalic suctoral disc in family Gobiidae. So lots of different life histories here among these fishes in family Gobiidae. And again, it's one of the largest families of fishes, the largest marine family. So you sort of expect that, lots of diversity. So pretty cool family. Next, we're going to talk about suborder Acanthuroidea. This suborder is unified by a small mouth with non-protrusible premaxilla. So these things, the premaxilla is sort of fused here. It does not swing out, and the mouth doesn't open so wide. They have a very deep body. So again, very deep body here, and they're laterally compressed, meaning that they're kind of like a pancake. Very thin, kind of laterally. And so we are going to talk in particular here about Acanthuroidea, or Acanthuroidea, the surgeon fishes, as an example here of this suborder. And so when we look at, and also Ephipidae, the spade fishes. So the first one we'll talk about are the spade fishes. Family Ephipidae. The spade fishes are very characteristic in body shape. They have spinous, soft, and dorsal fins that are separate. So again, anterior, hard, spiny dorsal fin close to the head, posterior, soft, ray dorsal fin, and oftentimes there is elongate. The soft ray is elongated. And same with the anal fin. So soft dorsal fin is elongated, anal fin is elongated. So it gives it the shape of a spade, like on a playing card, a spade. That's what they look like. Hence the name, spade fishes, Ephipidae. They feed on jellyfish shellfish, and also comb jellies. About 30 species of spadefish. Broadcast spawners, sometimes it's pairs, so one male, one female. Oftentimes they do this in an aggregation, so several, they'll aggregate together and then pair off for spawning. Max size, 3 feet, 20 pounds. Anyone who's ever eaten these things, they're very good food fish. So spadefish is an excellent food fish. Juveniles of the Indo-Pacific species are valuable aquarium fishes. Oftentimes they're traded and they're called batfish in the aquarium. And so it's because they've got this unique kind of body shape. They're very pretty kind of fish, oftentimes this barring kind of pattern. And so really you're looking at the fin structure. Family, worldwide tropical and subtropical distribution in marine seas, mostly associated with coral reefs. So mostly on coral reefs. So family, Epiphytidae. We look at adults here of Catodipterus faber. These things associate in large aggregations with a high vertical relief. So sometimes shipwrecks, coral reefs, for example, and also like offshore oil drilling platforms. So they do like to have structure. Here are some spadefish here hanging around the hull of a boat. And they're also then in the Gulf of Mexico. And so again, you can sort of see these very elongated, soft rayed dorsal fin, and also then the anal fin is elongated, giving it the appearance of like a spade out of a playing card. So that's a characteristic there. And oftentimes this sort of dark gray or black and silver striping pattern on them. So these are the spade fishes. The next family, Acanthuridae, the surgeon fishes. So these things have 4 to 9 spines in the dorsal fin here. And the dorsal fin is continuous. So the first 4 to 9 spines are hard, and then the rest of the dorsal fin is soft rayed. But it is continuous. Oftentimes it extends all the way back to the caudal peduncle. It's sort of characteristic. The caudal peduncle, you can sort of see right here, has a scute on it, this hard bony plate. The caudal peduncle has 1 or more knife-like scutes, which is a modified scale. So here is another example of that scute here. Some species, it can fold forward against the body, and it's sort of sharp. It's kind of a weapon. And in some species, actually, this scute, this sort of sharp scute, is coated with a kind of toxic slime, so that if something scratches themselves against it, it sort of poisons them. These things are mostly herbivorous. Usually they roam around in large schools, again, oftentimes in coral reefs. Because they're herbivores, the intestine is often very long and coiled. Some species of Acanthuridae have gizzard-like stomachs that have symbiotic protists, or single-celled animals that live in the gut, that help them break down the plant matter. So that helps them to digest and absorb nutrients that are processed from the algae that they eat. 72 species, broadcast spawners, again, sometimes pair spawning, other times they spawn in groups. And so that's the spawning strategy there. Max length about 2.5 feet. You know, some people will actually eat these things, the surgeon fishes, and so they're considered in some places to be important food fish, but they can be ciguatoxic. So we'll talk about ciguatera toxin poisoning a little bit later. It's one of the stories I'll tell you. But oftentimes, warm water fishes in coral reefs oftentimes accumulate toxins from dinoflagellates. And so these toxins never go away. And if something else eats them, they can become very, very ill. And so a lot of times you don't really eat a lot of really warm water coral reef fishes. Juveniles, family Acanthuridae, the surgeon fishes, are valuable in the aquarium trade. So again, you can look at the colors here. They're kind of brilliant purples and blues and yellows, the surgeon fishes. So they're a lot of times they're in the aquarium trade. So like for instance, here's a yellow, the lemon peel mint, the lemon peel tang. Families worldwide, marine tropical distribution. So warm water marine fishes. Warm water marine fishes. They're actually kind of odd. They have this weird larval stage. They're transparent. So this is the larval stage of a surgeonfish. And they're sort of transparent larvae. And they're pelagic. These things sort of float in the water column with the plankton. And the larval stage is called acroneurus. And they're capable of living in this larval stage for quite some time. A lot of fishes, you know, they sort of metamorphose out of this state for as quickly as possible because in some cases, larvae are quite vulnerable to predation. But notice all the hard spines on this thing. They're actually they can sort of take care of themselves, so to speak. And this protracted planktonic development stage increases their dispersal. So again, if the adults are breeding and have external fertilization and the gametes are then sort of swept away, when they hatch, this extended larval stage, this acroneurus larval stage then allows these ocean currents to fully distribute these things so that it enhances dispersal or colonization, if you will. Newly hatched surgeonfish larvae are referred to as acroneurus. Here is the picture of an example acroneurus. Here are the adults, quite different. The acroneurus is so different that people actually thought this was a different species. And they called it genus Acroneurus. And so because that then was later debunked, the name stuck because the larvae are so distinctly different from that of other fishes that they still refer to the larvae as Acroneurus because of the legacy fake or incorrect naming of this as a different species. So interesting kind of fact there on the larval development. So that's the last family I'm going to go over here, and then I'm going to move into a story. And again, next week's is the last lecture on the most derived perciform fishes, the most derived fishes in the world we'll talk about. So here's a story. This is kind of an interesting story. And we'll talk a little bit more about this when we talk about sensory biology of fish. But I'm going to give you a little bit of a tidbit here. So here, you learned it here, AEC 441, red color in the deep. So remember we were talking about things like, what is it, squirrel fishes and things like that that are very deep water fishes that have very large eyes. You can sort of tell they're nocturnal. They operate in very low light conditions. You can sort of tell an animal, if it's got a big eye, it usually indicates that it's either important or that they are designed to operate in low light conditions or limited visibility conditions. So here's an example of sebastes, the redfish. These things are brightly colored red at the surface. You know, these guys go out fishing for these things and they pull them up. And they're brightly colored red. Everyone's like, wow, look at how brilliant, this is beautiful. Well, this is sort of a figure here showing what light does as it goes through the water column. So short wave light emitted from the sun and the visible spectrum, right? Short wave infrared to red has wavelengths in the visible spectrum ranging from about 360 nanometers to 750 nanometers in red. So red light attenuates rapidly at depth. And so this is how much red light penetrates. So it does not penetrate further than about 5 meters deep into the water. After that, it's gone. There's no red light down here in the deep. So blue light, however, can penetrate quite deep into the water column. And this is just this is a physical characteristic of light and water. So blue light can penetrate deeply into the seabed and can actually reflect out of the water at depth, even when water approaches 30 meters. because blue wavelengths are absorbed last compared to other wavelengths, then any reflected light coming out of the ocean, that's why the ocean appears blue to your eyes standing on the shoreline looking into it. Okay? It's blue because that's the light that penetrates the deepest. So fishes that live down here in the deep lack the ability of color vision. Their eyes might not have the cones necessary to see color. But even if they had cones that could see color like red, they still couldn't see it because guess what? There's no red light wavelengths getting down here. In order to see something, light has to hit something and bounce off of it into your eye. If no red light can get down here, you don't need to see the color red. It's useless because the red light's all up here. So because red light attenuates, many deep sea fishes are actually brightly colored red. And it's because it's a form of camouflage. If nothing down here can see the color red, because their eyes are either designed not to see red, or there's no red light wavelengths to bounce off your body to let a predator see you, this is a form of camouflage. These things are essentially invisible. So there's no red light down there to reflect off of them. And even if there was, most of the predators down there are used to, they can't see red anyhow. Their eyes aren't designed to do it. So these fish actually appear gray or dark dusky black at depth, thus blending in with the dark surroundings, a form of camouflage. So when you reel these things up, you catch one and you reel it up to surface, they're like bright red. You're like, wow, how can, something obviously has to be able to see that, can't miss it. Well, no, take this animal and put it into its actual natural environment, it's actually perfectly camouflaged. Again, by understanding the physics of water and the properties of light. Very interesting. So that is red color in the deep, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about sensory biology, especially when we talk about eyesight in fishes and how do fish see, because it's a little bit different than on the terrestrial air realm, because water has a lot different properties compared to an atmosphere comprised mostly of nitrogen and oxygen. So with that, I'm going to stop recording, and I will then entertain questions.